What's the deal, family? Welcome back to the channel. Today we got another banger for y'all, man. So look, we got why tiny New Zealand is so good at rugby. Alright, about to run this up one time for the one time, man. Look, I told y'all, I got something for y'all, man. You know, I had to bless my South Africans with the celebration videos and, you know, only one team won, so that's all they got. But for y'all was insanely requesting me to react to this video. And I guess the interesting part about this is you got South Africa with 60 million people, right? Then you got New Zealand, which has like 5 million people or something like that. So the dichotomy of that alone is already an interesting topic. But we gonna check this video out. It's low-key something I've been wondering myself for a long fucking time. Like, yo, this place is so tiny, it's so small, but these fools win every game across the whole globe in rugby. How? You know what I mean? Like, how is this going on? It's kind of like, it reminds me of like the Ethiopians who do like the long distance running, and they always win, like marathons, anything that's like long distance, ultra marathons, the Ethiopians in East Africa, they always win. Very similar to the New Zealanders when it comes to rugby, man. Even the other teams from other places in the world, a lot of their best players are from New Zealand. Like, it's kind of crazy, dog, to be honest. But let's get into this video. Let's tap in. On my Patreon, I will be doing a reaction to the Weight of the Nation All Blacks documentary. It's going to be exclusive to Patreon. It may be like some months down the line, I'll probably re-upload it to YouTube. But it's going to be only on Patreon for a while. And it's only $1, so get up over there if you want to check it out. Let's get into this one, though.
In September 2023, these 20 countries will participate.
Oh, and by the way, this was brought to us by Search Party. Make sure to go check them out. Show them some love, too.
In the biggest tournament of one of the world's most popular sports, rugby. And you could make a strong argument that one of these 5 teams will win it. England invented the sport and has reached the World Cup finals 4 times. South Africa won the last World Cup in 2019. Ireland is currently ranked number 1 in the world, and France is hosting the tournament. Then there's New Zealand, who might win because, well, they're the most dominant team in the history of rugby, and arguably in all of sports history.
Yeah.
And the All Blacks are the world champions for the second time.
Since 1903, the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team has only lost to 7 countries, but has a comfortable winning record against.
Wait, what?
Blacks rugby team has only lost to 7 countries.
Whoa. They've only lost to these teams ever. What the fuck? Wow. They've lost to Argentina. They've lost to Wales before. Australia makes sense. South Africa, Ireland, France, England all make sense. I've seen those. But Wales and Argentina threw me off. But, I mean, hey, at least they got one.
But has a comfortable winning record against all of them. That's all the more impressive when you take into account that New Zealand today only has a population of 5 million people.
Hold up. I'm sorry, bro. I just got to look at 62, 39, 140, 24, 45, 33, 8, 35, 48, 13, 34, and 3. Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess if any team was going to beat them, it was going to probably be South Africa, right? They got the closest to a 50-50 record.
When you take into account that New Zealand today only has a population of 5 million people, a fraction of the other countries that have made a World Cup final.
Very unique, obviously, for us to dominate the world because we are a very small part of it.
There is a fervent following of this team, almost religious at times.
So it begs the question, how did such a tiny country create such a dominant sports team? And can the New Zealand All Blacks stay on top?
Great question.
Rugby combines the less placid features of American football and English soccer. You can run, pass, or kick the ball, while at the same time protecting yourself from the combined assault of the enemy.
Rugby is a fast, violent, and chaotic sport with many rules, but one basic premise: get the ball to your opponent's end of the field. The modern form of the game was invented at a school in Rugby, England, around 1820. At the time, England had a world-spanning empire. game was invented at a school in Rugby, England around...
I'm going through a fucking history lesson, dog. I'm not gonna lie, good thing I took AP World History when I was in high school, dog. You know what I mean? There's a place literally called Rugby, England. That is fucking crazy. Because I always wondered, too, like, where did the name come from? Like, I just assumed it was a dude whose last name was Rugby who made it up. But nah, it's because it started in Rugby, England. Wow.
1820. At the time, England had a world-spanning empire, and it introduced rugby to its colonies, like South Africa and Australia in the 1860s, then New Zealand in the 1870s, where it became especially popular.
When rugby came to New Zealand, it came from origins in the UK where it was very much related to class structure. The elite schools played rugby in the UK.
Tony Johnson is a rugby expert, author, and TV broadcaster in New Zealand.
Welcome back, and Caleb Clark is in.
When it came to New Zealand, it really was the game for everyone. Didn't matter where.
Caleb Clark is in.
When it
He sound like me when I'm hype on the reactions.
came to New Zealand, it really was the game for everyone. Didn't matter where you came from, what school you went to, you had a go at this game.
That included New Zealand's indigenous population, the Maori. They formed rugby teams almost immediately, and as early as the 1880s, a mostly Maori rugby team called the Natives played matches in other countries.
It was indeed a Maori person, Tom Ellison, who first came up with the idea of New Zealand wearing this black jersey.
Those jerseys are how New Zealand's national team came to be known as the All Blacks. And in 1905, they set off across the ocean to play matches, which, when played between countries, are called tests. The All Blacks surprised everyone by playing a faster, more expansive, and far more organized style of rugby than had ever been seen before. They played 35 tests, and they only lost once. A success that not only changed rugby, but also how the world saw New Zealand.
New Zealand was starting to search for its own identity. This was the start of it. This was New Zealand. You know, not so much a British subject anymore, but our own people.
After the tour, the All Blacks embodied that new national identity by fusing rugby with New Zealand culture, most famously by performing a Maori war dance called the haka before every test.
I think initially the haka was a greeting, and so a challenge.
The only thing I can say, bro, is look. This reminds me of when I look at like rap before gangster rap. Like before gangster rap, it was like MC Hammer with the hammer pants and like goofy rap stuff. And then it was like NWA, Tupac, nigga, Death Row, nigga, Biggie, nigga, like, and they was going hard. You know what I mean? But before that, rap was like to the hip. Hop, the hippie, to the hip, hip hop, don't stop the rock. Dance. That's how I felt about seeing this haka that just happened right now. In comparison to like the Capo Pongo and like some other hakas, like this just looks goofy. No disrespect at all. Like, I'm just being honest.
Often performed before a battle. Some people feel that the haka gives the All Blacks an unfair advantage. It's psychological.
In 1924, this All Blacks team won all 32 tests on an overseas tour, earning them the nickname the Invincibles. They raised New Zealand's expectations for the All Blacks from simply winning to dominating world rugby.
The superlative All Blacks rugby machine. They once more confirmed their absolute supremacy. World champion. The New Zealand war machine, all set to join the other nations who've fallen before the invincible All Blacks.
There we go. Man, I don't like that jump. I don't like that jump though.
According to data gathered by ESPN, between 1900 and 1989, the All Blacks won 71% of their tests.
Ooh, shit.
In 1987, they won the first ever Rugby World Cup. Then from 1990 to 2009, the All Blacks achieved a staggering 80% win rate. When they did lose, they always turned things around by developing new strategies.
You know, we're not the biggest people in the world. The South Africans produce these giants. England, a very sort of gym-trained muscularity about them. But what we do have is a combination of athleticism, skill, but also be willing to try something just a little bit out of the ordinary.
More than 100 years after it started playing rugby, this small country of a few million people was still producing the best rugby players in the world, year after year. So how does New Zealand do it? To make this video, we needed to do a ton of research, which meant going a lot of different places on the internet, which you may or may not have noticed has become kind of sketchy. A lot of people out there are getting a lot better at stealing your information, stealing your data.
This is an
VPN
ad.
is the sponsor of this video, and it's a tool I use all the time. Basically, a VPN is a way to securely access the internet.
The fact that it is our national game, so kids are playing it from when they're small,
To get back to the video.
It's the fact that it is our national game, so kids are playing it from when they're small, boys and girls.
Alice Soper is a rugby player and journalist.
You can be 6, so like 5 or 6, and they play something called Ripper Rugby, which is like a primer to the tackle where they have flags on their shorts.
Ripper Rugby teaches kids how to run, pass, and catch, and it's how New Zealand maximizes the number of people who try rugby.
Ripper Rugby. Very similar in America. I'm sure you guys already know this. I'm not telling you nothing new, but in case you don't know this, or somebody watching who doesn't know this, in America, we do have NFL, which is American football, right? But also, when you're young, a lot of people tend to play flag football before they start playing tackle football. So, very similar to how we do in America. I played flag football. I wanted to play tackle, but my parents didn't want me to play tackle, so I played flag before I ended up playing tackle football in high school. But we do the same thing. When we play flag football, it kind of gets your feet in the door and, get your feet wet a little bit before you actually decide if you want to go, head on. Which, of course, I did. I wanted to do that when I was young. So, yeah, they have the same kind of process. But you also can play tackle as a kid. To y'all Kiwis over there who's watching this video, do you have the option to play tackle rugby as a kid or no? Because you definitely have the option to play tackle football, starting from 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. So, let me know.
Thereby maximizing the pool of talent, entering a pipeline that feeds the All Blacks. By the time kids turn 13, they're playing tackle rugby and join club and school teams. Many high schools, called colleges in New Zealand, field multiple teams, again, to keep as many playing as possible. But the best boys play on their school's top team, where the best of the best are increasingly identified as potential future All Blacks.
You could almost liken it to college sport in the United States.
They're getting recruited from high school.
Rugby, where we show you the stars of tomorrow today.
Then after graduating, the best are hired by teams to play in New Zealand's professional rugby league, Super Rugby. Only professional players that play in New Zealand are eligible to reach the top level, the All Blacks. It's a way for the team to ensure that there is a constant stream of new players that learn the game the New Zealand way.
They have to be all things. So they've got to be able to kick, they've got to be able to run, they've got to be able to tackle.
There's an expectation that they will play rugby the way the New Zealand public expect to see them play, which is this rather flamboyant style.
Possibly the greatest generation of All Blacks ever played from about 2010 to 2016. Over that time span, they won 90% of their tests.
Oh my God.
And never lost at home. Plus, they won 2 more World Cup championships. Several players on the 2015 team played at the same schools, and they all played for one of 5 Super Rugby teams.
Probably the most well-known would be Richie McCaw. He was your
Richie!
typical hard man, absolutely no fear going into the contact.
Daniel Carter, for example.
Dan Carter, who a lot of you say is one of the greatest rugby players ever of all time. Out of all the comments I've ever gotten about this is the best player ever in the world, Dan Carter is definitely probably the most commented person all time if I went through my YouTube comments. That guy is the one y'all say is the best ever. And I still don't think I've reacted to him yet.
It was like the Joe Montana of the All Blacks. He was a brilliant player, but he was a great strategist as well.
But while the top of the pipeline gets all the glory, New Zealand's real advantage over its much bigger rivals is at the bottom.
Other countries may have a similar kind of narrow trajectory through your schoolboys into your academies. They just don't have as many people funneling in at that beginning point.
It's quite a rugged sort of a game that suited the early pioneers of New Zealand, and these days it provides opportunity now for young people coming out of perhaps some of the more difficult socio-economic areas of New Zealand.
So the All Blacks dominate rugby because New Zealand transformed it into a game for everyone. But whether or not their domination continues is up for debate.
Huge World Cup upset. His men are too good for the All Blacks.
In 2019, the All Blacks failed to make the World Cup finals. Then in 21 and 22, they lost a stretch of 6 out of 8 tests, which pushed them to an all-time low ranking of 5th in the world. It led some to speculate that the All Blacks were in decline and question whether they could continue to dominate world rugby. Blame was placed on the COVID pandemic and the All Blacks coach Ian Foster. Most importantly, though, the losses forced New Zealanders to reflect on how their country's relationship with rugby is changing. A 2018 report found that the number of high school boys playing rugby was falling, while other sports were on the rise.
New Zealand has had phenomenal success in sports like rowing, basketball, but they've taken away athletes who once upon a time would have been All Blacks.
Like a lot of kind of male prevalent sports, they then start to take on that identity of like real heavily masculine spaces, which isn't necessarily what people want to be around. It's become out of step with younger New Zealanders.
And many worry that high school rugby is increasingly dominated by a few privileged schools that are making the game too professional at the expense of the rest. A 2013 investigation found that 5 schools in Auckland are estimated to have spent $400,000 on their rugby teams, while their competitors spent only $50,000. Over the next 5 years, the number of Auckland high school rugby teams fell from 225 to 181.
It's become very elitist, with the schools really focusing on the elite teams. What happens to all the players who aren't good enough to play for the first team?
Just a lot of pressure when you're 15. So we're starting to see people realize, oh, well, this isn't working.
This is natural economics at play, though. If you guys remember, I reacted to the story from Rugby Pass about them recruiting Americans to play rugby, right? These were like people who played college football, high school football. I think even some like pro NFL players who got dropped, and now they're trying to compete in rugby, so they're trying to build this team out. The thing about that is, like, in America, if they put more emphasis on looking at the inner city schools and the poor schools, and they gave everybody access to the sport by looking at these places more, they will find the athletes. I will promise you they'll find the athletes. Because these are guys who maybe don't have enough money to get into the football program. But they're a fucking athlete, though. These are guys who don't got money to go to college. But they're a fucking athlete. You know? Like, the thing is like, this is normal economics because you guys are the top guys, and because rugby is becoming a bigger sport overall in the world. You know what that means? More marketing dollars, more ad dollars, more companies that want to be in partnerships and all that. So money becomes more of a thing. And when these companies decide, hey, we want to be a part of rugby too, who are we going to go look at? First, obviously, they're going to go to like England and France because it's Western Europe and there's more money to go around. But if they're not looking at it, then they're looking at the best teams. And because South Africa's economy isn't the best, it's okay, but it's not the best, they're probably going to go to Australia. And what's right next to Australia? New Zealand. Which means that teams and players, schools and teams got to look at, the money. Because the guys who run these schools and run these teams don't play the game. They run the team or the school. So they're only looking at money, which is in turn going to like hinder the people who's in the inner cities who are actually hungry, right? The people who are less fortunate are way more hungry to play the game. They just want to play just to play, so they don't go out and go kill somebody, so they don't go out and go sell drugs, so they don't go out there and act a fool. You know what I mean? Those are the hungry guys. When you look at the rest of the world, because it's more popular, there's more hungry guys. New Zealand, they're not as hungry. Because only the elite schools are getting the money, and that makes it harder for the person who's really hungry to come up and really make it into the sport. So, because of all these factors, New Zealand naturally declines as being so superior that nobody can touch them or beat them. To like, oh, maybe they are mortal. They're not immortal. Maybe they are mortal. Maybe, if we come up and we practice and we try hard enough, we can catch up to that team. That's my thoughts on it. Y'all let me know what your thoughts are.
Looking out here, We need to be changing things.
The most immediate challenge keeping the All Blacks from total domination, though, is the rest of the world. The rivals are getting better, particularly France and Ireland. Additionally, professional rugby leagues in Europe and Asia are getting very popular, and they're attracting a lot of New Zealand's players, making them ineligible to play for the All Blacks.
And even the lure of that black jersey for some players simply isn't enough when they think they can set themselves up for life.
In England, you've got a couple of Kiwis that are over there. If you look at the European teams, same thing there. Japan, currently run by a New Zealander. We put our people everywhere, and then we're surprised when they start to know our tricks.
So while the loss of these players may hurt the All Blacks' ability to win tests, it does ensure that New Zealanders will continue to remain at the cutting edge of rugby well into the future.
This is facts.
Even though the popularity
Facts.
of boys rugby may be falling in New Zealand, the popularity of women's rugby there is exploding, and the women's All Blacks team is number 2 in the world. Thanks again for watching episode 3. This was a fun one to do. To all of you that have subscribed and become members, thanks so much.
Hey, shouts out to bruh for the video. But yeah, man, it's just like basketball, bro. We created basketball in America. We are, if you look long term, we are the best. Yeah, sure, you might be like, oh, Spain got more, whatever, dog. We're the best team, bro. Like, the best players just don't really care to play. Like, for the World Cups and all that, and Olympics and all that stuff. But over a long period of time, we are the best team. But other teams get players, other teams get money, other teams, come to America, this and that and the third, and they become competitive as well. So, it just is what it is, bro. So, but either way, though, I mean, the dominance of New Zealand is fucking insane. It's incredible. It's commendable. It's respected. Should be respected by the rest of the world. And if it wasn't for New Zealanders, the game probably wouldn't be as popular as it is now. And then for every, sport, you need a rivalry that really sets off the sport. New Zealand versus South Africa is a rivalry that makes the sport more popular for the rest of the world. It's just like the Lakers and the Celtics in the 80s. They saved the NBA. The NBA was dead. It was going to be over. But because of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and those two teams going back and forth every damn year, it allowed for the NBA to become even that much more popular across the world. The Lakers were more flashy and run and gun like the All Blacks. The Celtics were more fundamentals, more hard-nosed, just like the Springboks. Springboks wore green. All Blacks wear black. The Lakers had all black players and they wore yellow and gold. And the Celtics had all white players and they wore green. I mean, I'm just saying. That's what makes sports become big worldwide. Thank you for this video to this guy. I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, man. Get at me on the Patreon. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Remember to keep it real. Real is rare. Real always reaches everyone. See y'all next time. Peace.